They told you to calm down, man up, deal with it, and smile. But inside, that fire, it only grew. Now, every man knows what it's like to carry anger when he was never allowed to show it. And today, we speak to the rage that has lived in silence for too long. There's a kind of rage inside some men, not because they're violent, but because they were silenced for too long. It didn't come from nowhere. It was earned in courtrooms, in betrayals, in dismissals, in 1,000 moments where your voice just didn't matter. But the world doesn't want to hear about male rage, that is, unless it can mock it or fear it or punish it. No one asks where it came from or what it cost you to carry it. So you did what you were trained to do all the way back. You swallowed it. You kept it buried deep down until it started poisoning you from the inside. You became so practiced at pretending where even you began to believe the lie that you were fine, that nothing was wrong. This was just life. But you knew better. There was a storm inside that never had permission to pass. And whether anyone said it or not, you had a right, a genuine reason to be angry. You weren't born angry. You were made to feel small, then punished when you pushed back. You were told not to cry, then shamed when your anger showed up instead. But here's the truth. Rage isn't the problem, it's a signal. It says, this hurts. This isn't fair. This has gone on too long. And this matters to say clearly because it's where people get uncomfortable. Some men do become dangerous, not because rage is inborn, but because when anger is denied, silenced, or shamed early enough or long enough, it doesn't stay clean. Unacknowledged rage doesn't disappear. It hardens, it distorts, and eventually looks nothing like the pain that created it. Now, that does not excuse what it becomes. Make no bones about it. We're not about excuses, but it does explain why pretending rage isn't real and how it does turn destructive. For most of us, though, rage was never about destruction. It was always about truth. The truth that something inside you was violated when you couldn't express hurt. Rage became the language of your wound. It was never meant to destroy. It was meant to protect what mattered most. But no one taught you that. They just told you to grow up, to man up, to calm down. So you turn the fire inward. And what happens when a fire has no place to go? Well, it eats at the foundation. It weakens the structure. It fills the air with smoke. No one else sees. That's what unspoken rage becomes. An invisible burn that leaves very visible scars. And you couldn't show it. Not at home. Not at school when you were a kid. Not at work later on. They told you you were too big, too loud, too threatening. So you stuffed it down. You laughed it off. You became the calm one. You became the one who doesn't react. And for many men, us regular guys, this is where it gets missed. Now, you don't feel enraged. You feel in control, functional, responsible, quiet. But buried deep inside, that restraint is actually anger. Anger you earned and never spent. Rage you didn't act on, not because it wasn't there, but because you learned it wasn't allowed. Now, that kind of anger doesn't announce itself. It settles into the body and waits until one day it came out sideways at your kids, at the driver in front of you, at the wall, at the mirror. Not because you're violent, not because you're broken, but because the fire needed air and silence became fuel. Now, every man has a limit. And when that limit is reached, what once was a slow burn becomes a flashpoint. You didn't ask for it, but you carried it, and it changed the way you walk through the world. So let's be clear. That's not weakness. That is endurance. It's why your shoulders are tight, why your jaw aches at night, why you emotionally flinch at things that no one else notices. But it's not just emotion. It's memory stored in the body, unspoken, unprocessed, unheard. Here is what no one tells men. Healthy men get angry. Anger itself does not destroy you. Isolation does. Shame does. Silence does. When rage is named, witnessed, and respected, it transforms. It becomes clarity. It becomes boundaries. It becomes strength that protects instead of burns. You do not need to be ashamed of your fire, but you do need to understand it. Your anger was not a flaw. It was a signal of your final line of defense. When treated with respect, it becomes sacred, a compass, a truth teller, a force that shapes legacy. It becomes the reason you protect your sons differently, the reason you speak even when your voice shakes. Because now you know, silence does not make you strong, truth does. And you are not alone. There are other men who carried this fire and learned how to let it speak without destroying themselves. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. You were hurt, dismissed, erased, and yes, you are allowed to pause, head shaking, hand held up, and you should be angry about whatever that was that had you upset. This world took your labor, your restraint, your compliance, and demanded your silence in return. Of course you should be angry. You do not need to explode, but you do need to stop turning the fire inside. You have a right to your anger, to your voice, to your questions you were never allowed to ask. Why was I always the one who had to hold it together? Why did no one care what this cost me? You're allowed to stop pretending it didn't hurt. Your anger is not a defect, it's a message, a signal that something mattered, that you do matter. And no, you are not dangerous for feeling it. Anger only becomes dangerous when it is denied. So let your voice say what silence never could. Because the man who owns his truth reclaims his peace. The rage was never the enemy. It was proof that you were alive, that you deserved to be heard. Still standing, still clear, and still here.